Hello, and thank you for joining me. If you haven't met me, my name is Liz Whittaberry, and I specialize in retirement planning. I am the founder and financial advisor here at Best Path Advisors in Colleyville, Texas, but I work with women and couples across the nation. And for roughly 25 years, I've helped hundreds of women and couples retire on their best path. And so, because of that knowledge and experience that I've gained, I would like to share some insights with you today that could help you retire on your best path as well. Now, last month I shared a sample for a couple by the name of Jim and Joan Zample. That's my sample client, and they have between 4.5 and 5 million of assets. And we see their information here on the screen. This was the planning software that I used last month to walk through their plan, show you how I came up with some strategies that would help them reduce taxes over their lifetime and improve the results not only for themselves, but eventually for their heirs. And so you can go back and look at that plan in the July recordings, the July sample plan. But this month, I want to revisit their plan and look at it in a different software package and talk through some specific things that they need to be focused on and some of the benefits of doing some of the strategies, implementing some of the strategies that we talked about. I'm going to click into this other software, and this software will give us a projection from now all the way out to age 100, same as the other plan. But it also shows some planning strategies or results of the strategies that my other software doesn't show. It helps me to look at where their assets should be invested, but it also gives some additional insight into their health costs. And that can be very beneficial. So I want to point out a few things. First off, I've got 4 million of assets entered here. I don't have the deferred comp entered as an asset here because I have it entered as income next year. And this program treats it a little bit different. So it's entered as income coming in next year. We knew that in the plan that I did last month that was going to come in next year. That was going to be a big tax cost. In fact, we talked about the benefits of doing some tax planning specifically around having that one big income year. And so that's built into this. But beyond that, we've got all of their expenses entered, same as in the other plan. They've got their basic expenses, $136,000 a year at the beginning of retirement, dropping down to $131,000 when they hit those slow go years. They've got their ongoing charitable contributions, and then they're buying a car worth $45,000 today every 5 years. And we see those bump ups in the expenses where those cars are being purchased. I've got their Social Security entered, same as in the other plan, having that start at their full retirement age. And then I have allowed this program to calculate the healthcare, and it uses some very good databases and calculates the cost of healthcare. And that is projected here over their lifetime. You see the healthcare costs going up. And the program is saying that their total cost for their Part B, their Part D, their Medigap, the out-of-pocket, a little bit of commercial, private insurance until Joan gets her Medicare turned on, total medical costs over their retirement years for both of them can be quite a lot. But one of the additional costs that they have to think about is the IRMAA cost. IRMAA is income-related monthly adjustment amount, and that is a surcharge for their cost of Part B and Part D, and that surcharge is based on the income that they have. And so we look at this on the left-hand side of this, and you come down to the bottom, obligations. We've got taxes owed of $3,062,000 during their lifetime. They're going to have required minimum distributions of a little more than $10 million. And then they have an IRMAA cost of $258,000. That is the surcharge for the cost of their Medicare Part B in their Medicare Part D based on the way that their plan is set up. They've got a lot of money, if you'll recall, in the tax deferred accounts. They had a very tiny amount in the tax-free Roth. They each had $2,000 in tax-free Roth. And so most of their money was saved in tax deferred accounts to save tax as they went along. But now that's going to push them into a period of a situation where they're going to have higher taxes in retirement, and they're going to have this IRMAA cost that they're facing in retirement. And so when we look at their taxes over a lifetime, if they haven't done anything, we see they have this very big tax year from the deferred comp income. And then they have some very low tax years because they're retired. They're not taking required minimum distributions yet, and they're living off of their other taxable savings, the brokerage account, the savings, the checking. And so there's very low tax to pay during those years. Their Social Security is, only 85% of that is taxable. And so that gives them those low years. And then they hit required minimum distribution age, and the taxes begin to increase. On top of that, after a few years, those required minimum distributions have pushed them into a point where they're paying IRMAA. And that even begins to increase more and more down the road, becomes a bigger and bigger and bigger cost down the road. And so some of the reason for doing the strategies that I demonstrated last month would be to also impact this IRMAA cost, to bring this IRMAA cost down so that they don't pay as much in IRMAA, maybe don't pay any in IRMAA, depending on, what makes sense for their situation. So let's look at doing Roth conversions. Last month, I had shown that, what if we converted Joan's 401k and Joan's IRA? That leveled out their taxes over their retirement years. And that made a big difference in the future growth, the amount of the future growth that was tax-free, and the amount of the inheritance that would go to their heirs with no further tax on it. But it's going to also make a big difference in this IRMAA cost. And that is what I want to show today. Right now, I've got these in here that Joan's going to convert her 401k. She's going to convert her IRA, going to add those to her existing Roth account. And she's going to start that in 2026. That's the year I'd said to start in the other program, starting that in 2026 and going forward. That's because in 2025, they have that big deferred comp income, so they're not going to stack a Roth conversion on top of that. They're going to wait till 2026 and do the conversion then. And if she converts those two accounts, what happens is they levelize their taxes. They pay more taxes earlier on. Down the road, they reach a point where the income is coming from the Roth. And so they have very low taxes down the road. But what we see is that the IRMAA cost dropped to $68,000. They have some IRMAA cost early on. Part of that is created by these Roth conversions, but it saves them significant cost in IRMAA down the road. And so I'm going to turn these Roth conversions off again. And you see, if they don't do the Roth conversions, they're going to have an IRMAA cost of $258,805. That's because of the future required minimum distributions pushing them into that higher bracket. If Joan converts her IRA and 401k, they still have Jim's IRA and 401k. They haven't converted all of their tax deferred accounts. But if Joan converts hers, then their IRMAA cost reduces to $68,487. So that puts them in a much better position for their lifetime costs, their expenses, and how their assets are going to do over time. Another thing that we can see in this software that I will just take a second to show you is how they should invest their assets. This shows how a bucket plan gets lined up. And what I'm looking at right here is each of the different segments for 5-year periods of time, which accounts would be lined up with that segment. And that then lets us know how much money should be invested for the first 5 years, how much should be invested for the next 5 years, how much for the following 5 years, and so on. And then we see what is the money that's going to be invested as surplus that's going to be left over, that's not being used to provide cash flows while they're living, that is either extra money that they could dip into during their lifetime, or it's money that would end up going to their heirs. And so that chunk of money in the surplus column, that's all from Joan's Roth. That's all tax-free money. They may want to switch some things around, as we move through their plan over time. We may make some other decisions, but this gives us a good view of the fact that they're going to have a nice surplus, and it's going to be very beneficial in the way that they're leaving it to their children, which is something that is important to them. And so that gives us confirmation that the other plan is working the way that we want it to work, and then gives us an idea of exactly how to invest in order to make the plan carry out their wishes over their lifetime. So that is the insight for today. You want to look at your plan. What are your required minimum distributions going to be over your lifetime? How big are they going to get? And what kind of a tax cost is that going to create for you? Not just your income tax, but also on top of that, your cost of IRMAA. The income-related monthly adjustment amount can be a very big cost, and it is going up over time. Those brackets are going up, the cost is going up, the amount is going up over time. So that is something that you want to be aware of. You want to make a plan for it. You want to be in control of that as much as possible, and you want to make sure that you can minimize the cost of IRMAA that you're going to have to pay in your retirement. So if there's anything that I can help you with, feel free to send me an email. I get all of those directly, and I'll be happy to send you a response. And I hope that you have a great rest of your day.